staff would be so kind as to set us up for O Canada.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
And everybody, if you're able to stand, please stand, and we'll take a moment of quiet reflection. That's great. Thank you. And I would ask somebody from around this virtual chamber if they'd be so kind as to make a motion to approve the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Campbell, seconded by Councillor Heen. All in favor? That's carried, and thank you. Are there any disclosures of interest based on anything in this agenda before us tonight? Councillor Cipolla, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's the motion, notice of motion to do with the Ramera. I'm a resident of Ramera.
Thank you for that. And with that being said, it is now my wonderful pleasure to ask if Mariano's there and if Fred's there and if Rick is there to turn on their cameras. Hello, Richard. And we'll wait for Fred. We'll wait for Mariano.
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Iman, C. Oh, there's Mariano. Oh, Mari, and there's Fred. All right, that's terrific. If council will indulge me just for a moment, as many know, the Aurelia Packet and Times, which was shuttered regretfully in November 2017 after an amazing 147 years of operation. Each year they recognize local community champions with its annual Citizen of the Year honor. The newspaper was closed in the midst of that particular search for a top citizen in 2017. But thanks to a panel of local residents and the assistance of City Council, the search continued. Now, several years later, my office still gladly facilitates the award process. The Citizen of the Year was established to recognize nominees who are residents of either Aurelia, Chippewas, Rama First Nation, or the townships of Ormadonte, Ramera, or Severn, who have contributed to the betterment of Orillia. Emphasis is placed not only on the work that they have done throughout their lives or years, but more as it pertains to the recent calendar year being 2020 in this case. To ensure the health and safety of all and in keeping with the provincial stay-at-home order, I welcome the Citizen of the Year selection panel. If you want to turn your cameras on now, who will announce the 2020 Citizen of the Year here today at our virtual meeting of council. The selection let's see, we got everybody here now. We got Michael, we got Mayor Noel, Leslie Fournier, Nathan, Frank, and Stan. That's great. And I know Ginny is unable to join us today. The selection panel consists of, as I mentioned, Leslie Fournier, Michael Gordon, Stan Matheson, and Ginny Stringer, who have themselves been recipients of the Citizen of the Year Award for the wonderful stuff they've done in our community, continue to do, and also reporter Nathan Taylor and from Aurelia Matters, and Aurelia Today reporter Frank Mattis. Not a stranger to any of us. I also participate myself as a non-voting member, just to merely facilitate the meetings. And all selection panel members are here with us today, with the exception of Ginny, who is unable to participate. But and certainly also another former wonderful and worthy recipient of this award. So Nathan, if you would be so kind as to take the first leg of this journey.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Clark, and to all members of council and those watching at home, the Citizen of the Year selection panel would like to recognize all nominees. 2020 nominees listed in alphabetical order include Fane Bullen, Sean and Annette Cuppage, Fred Larson, Carolyn Marie Goodwin, Kate Palmer, Rick Purcell, Craig Shelswell, Orillia Youth Center staff, Mariano Tulipano, and Amanda Wega. Late submissions that were not eligible for contemplation this year include nominations for Marcy Sumrick and David Mallinson. Now I would like to ask Stan to introduce our three finalists.
Thank you, Nathan. And through you, Mayor Clark, it's my pleasure to announce that the three finalists for the Aurelia 2020 Citizen of the Year include Fred Larson, Mariano Tulipano, and Rick Purcell. Now ask Michael to read brief comments regarding each of our three finalists. Michael.
Thank you, Stan. In alphabetical order, I will start with Fred Larson. Fred has tirelessly served the Sunshine City in numerous volunteer capacities. He volunteers with the Aurelia Kiwanis Club, the Aurelia Vocal Ensemble, Sustainable Aurelia, and is a founder of the Aurelia Center for Arts and Culture, just to name a few. Fred continuously demonstrates that he is committed to enriching the lives of others. Fred is often described as community, environmental, and cultural activist. Moving on to Mariano Tulipano. Mariano is a business owner, community leader, volunteer, and strong supporter of small businesses. He has volunteered with the Downtown Aurelia Management Board, the Chamber of Commerce, and Big Brothers Big Sisters. Mariano is dedicated to supporting small businesses and ensuring their success, especially in the downtown core. Mariano continuously strives to help others. Rick Purcell. Rick is currently the first Vice President of the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 34, and actively serves the community in numerous volunteer capacities. Rick volunteers with the Lynx 99 Squadron Air Cadets, Mariposa Folk Festival, and the Aurelia Scottish Festival, just to name a few. In 2020, in consultation with the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, Rick ensured a Remembrance Day service was held, albeit slightly different than the traditional service. Rick is dedicated and works tirelessly for the community. I would now ask that Leslie announce the 2020 Citizen of the Year recipient.
Thank you, Michael. On behalf of the Citizen of the Year selection panel, I'm pleased to announce that the 2020 Citizen of the Year is Fred Larson.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that, Leslie, and for the selection panel. That was the script, and Fred, this award will be coming your way. Once the restrictions are lifted, the mayor is glad to drive around and drop off the scripts to each of you. And I know that for a fact because I know the mayor personally. And Fred, I'm just curious if you would like to say a few words. And I would also recognize that Fred, it is neat that all three of you are here. Fred, it might be a little more remarkable that you're here because the health issues that you've had over the last couple of months. So it is absolutely remarkable that you're here, and congratulations. And if you'd like to say a few words, please do. Some of the most common words during this pandemic is you're on mute. The other popular words are no, you go ahead. So you gotta turn your microphone on there, Fred. Should be right beside your camera icon. Oh, we can do that at this end. We have the power.
There, okay.
Yes, I think I
All
have.
yours, Fred.
What a surprise and honor. My congratulations to Mariano and Rick. I've known of your contributions to this community for many years, and I'm honored to be in your company today. I really can't accept this Citizen of the Year honor without acknowledging the many community volunteers that I work with and that I've worked with over the years. The Orillia Vocal Ensemble, the Orillia Kiwanis Club, Sustainable Aurelia, and the Aurelia Center for Art and Culture are all possible only because of the time and effort that's volunteered by their members. I've been fortunate to be part of these organizations over the past several years. We are very fortunate in Aurelia. Our community is blessed with hundreds of people who give up their time to volunteer in dozens of ways. I'm grateful to be of their number. As volunteers, we often get back more than we give when we volunteer in this community. To the committee, I say thank you. I am thrilled to be Aurelia Citizen of the Year for 2020. Thank you so much.
I've never seen so many hands clapping make so little noise. Well, Fred, congratulations and certainly well deserved.
Oh, just lost you, Steve.
I'm gonna stop resting my hand on my microphone. Anyway, congratulations, Fred, a very, very deserving recipient. As many watching today will know that 2020 was a standout year for you. You were integral in setting up the online Aurelia Kiwanis Club auction and helped to save that particular fundraiser, which does so much in our community. Fred is also an officer and treasurer of Sustainable Aurelia. And during the pandemic, he redoubled his efforts to ensuring that Sustainable Aurelia's first anniversary report was still published, and that messages such as the tip of the week, online newsletters, and various articles were prominent in the local media. And Fred also participated in 2 electric vehicle promotions as part of Patio Fridays on Mississauga Street. And Fred, thank you for your tireless efforts to enhance the quality of life for all Aurelians. And Fred, as a token of council's appreciation, you'll receive a $250 passport parking app credit that can be used for on-street parking and in the municipal lots in the downtown core for the next year. You are also invited to participate in the Canada Day Parade. For anybody who has not got the passport app downloaded on their cellular device, do so. You should never receive another parking ticket in your life, at least in Aurelia. But to all nominees, to Mariano and to Fred and to Rick, I mean, I am extremely familiar with the efforts that you put into the Sunshine City and all wonderful and worthy recipients of being nominated. And thanks for that for all you do for the city of Aurelia. And a special thank you to Joe Watt, Trophy and Engraving, for generously, once again this year, donating the award. Joe, that's very nice of you to do that, and it's much appreciated. And in closing, I'd like to recognize just the other names on the screen and Ginny, all members of the selection panel, as we congratulate Fred and all the nominees. Thanks all for participating. And when we come out of this lockdown, it'll be my job to get everybody's nomination certificates, et cetera, out to them. Thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Should we just click under?
Well,
So just get out of
mhm.
just click on it.
Okay. Well, it's always nice to do something very pleasant like that. I don't believe we have any deputations. Madam Deputy Clerk, thank you. With respect to the minutes of January 18th, 2021 public meeting regarding planning matters, and January 18th as well, 2021 regular meeting at council, would somebody please make a motion to have those meetings adopted? Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Thank you, Councillor Iman. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Couple of correspondence items, and the first one is with respect to somebody just talked about Roma, the one conference that is, I guess, over for the year now. Next one, I guess, is OBRA, which I believe is a good Ontario Good Roads Association. And Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have a motion for this, or is it? I'm looking for potential participants. Thank you. Is there anybody that wishes to put their name or somebody else's name from council forward to attend this particular conference? Okay, in that case, Madam Deputy Clerk, do we just receive that as this is information? Don't need a motion? So we're done with that. If you say so. Okay, we're on to the second item, second correspondence item, also with respect to a conference, 2021 AMO conference, Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Is there anybody who wishes to participate in that one? The dates are August 15th through 18th, but I'm going to guess this is probably a virtual conference because this kind of planning has to take place well in advance. Any expressions of interest? Okay. We're on to reports. And I will wait for the first motion. Are we aware of anything being pulled there? Thank you. In that case, I'll entertain a motion that, oops. Go ahead, Councillor Yee.
Yes, I wanted to pull clause 7, I think it is. Wait a minute. Yeah, the clear plastic bag one.
Okay. Thank you. In that case, we'll entertain a motion to capture the rest of the report items. I'll read the motion and I'll look for a mover and a seconder that the report number 2021-2 of Council Committee now before Council be adopted with the exception of clause 7, which shall be introduced separately. Is there a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Ainsworth, and thank you, Councillor Councillor Campbell, I got to give that one to you. Is there any questions, comments, discussion on this particular report, these report items? I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Carried. Now with respect to item number 7. Councillor Heen, before does the motion have to go on because it was moved forward from a council committee? So I will put the motion on the floor. Sorry, I'll put the motion on the screen. Actually, I won't, but. There we are. I'll read it and then I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Although it looks like I've got a mover and a seconder, but that clause 7 of report number 2021-2 of council committee now before council be adopted with respect to clear plastic bags. Thank you, Councillor Ainsworth as a mover, and thank you, Councillor Cipolla as a seconder. I presume, Councillor Heen, you wish to discuss this.
Yes, although I agree in principle with the implementing of the clear plastic bags, I really feel that this is not the right time to be doing it. As a result of the pandemic, and all levels of government have asked an awful lot of people in general, whether it's masking, lockdowns, and people really feel that the government is controlling an awful lot of their lives, and people are getting grumpy, and my feeling is that we need to put it off for a while until things are back to normal, and not only that. I think that they're just really tired of being asked what to do. And the other part is that I'm not sure that 2 privacy bags is the right amount, that we need to be looking into this a bit further. And I was talking to some of my fellow councillors over the weekend, and I was saying that I was in Shoppers Drug Mart over the weekend picking up some prescriptions for my husband, and I was looking at the Depends packages, and I was thinking, if I had to use them, how many would I need in a day? And so would 2 privacy bags be enough? And I was trying to find out, and I'm not sure that would be quite enough. And the other part around that is that there's an embarrassment factor there if you're an older person and would have to use it. So I think that we need to look at this a little bit further. I know that you can put it in the privacy bag and you can put it in a garbage can, but there still is the whole sort of thing about if you're an older person and you're using it. So I think that we need to put it off a bit, think a little bit more about it, and bring it back when things are back to normal.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Heen. Councillor Ainsworth, then Councillor Cipolla.
Yes, through you, Mayor Clark, I'm quite happy to support this motion moving forward today. I think it's something pretty logical. I don't think we should be basing our decision at this point in time on, the potential of making certain people grumpy in the community. And I don't think that delaying this would be the right decision, because I really believe that if we were to delay this, for example, till next year, that we probably wouldn't pass it next year during an election year anyways, especially if the intention is to not upset people, which means that this council will not approve it if it's not approved today, essentially, and that the next council will have to deal with this. So I took the time and talked to Mr. Preston and got some facts concerning the waste diversion site. So I just wanted to share a bit of that for you and kind of take you on a bit of a journey through what my thoughts are in regards to this. So the interesting thing. Sorry, Mayor Clark?
So you were taking us on a bit of a journey. I said, please transport us.
No problem. Happy to do so. So reaching out to Greg and asking, because to be quite frank, I'm not sure if anyone on council knows this, because I know that I didn't know it and I was ignorant of the fact. But in regards to how much waste we actually send to the waste diversion site each year. And we actually send about 6,000 tons of garbage to the waste diversion site. which is quite a bit of waste. And I'll break a bit of that down for you, just because, well, what is 6,000 tons? I can't envision that in my mind. And then I thought about the percentage, which Greg talked about the other day. He said that by doing this, we would actually have a higher diversion rate. And this would increase our diversion rate in the city by, approximately 10%, upwards of, I think, 12 or even higher potentially, from what other municipalities have faced. So I took that low conservative number of 10% as kind of what, my goal is for this, and seeing what does that actually mean if we're going to increase our diversion rate by 10%. And so if you break that down and you take that 6,000 tons and you get 10% of that, you're left with 600 tons, which for me, I still don't know what that looks like. I've never, measured a ton before. So I thought I'd convert that to something that I'm a bit more familiar with. I've been trying to get in shape recently, so I've been watching the pounds. And so I said, well, what's 1 ton? And did you know that 1 ton is, about 2,000 pounds, which is pretty interesting. So if you look at that, you've got 600 tons, and you multiply that by 2,000 pounds, and you get left with a staggering number of waste, which is 1.2 million pounds of garbage. So by increasing our diversion rate by a small 10%, we're going to be diverting an extra 1.2 million pounds of garbage from going into our waste diversion site. So just in regards to the waste diversion itself and keeping that waste out of our waste diversion site, I think it's pretty straightforward just with that in itself. And I'm sure if we reached out to some of the folks who maybe are a bit more uncomfortable with this, and we said, well, would you rather us not do this, or would you rather send another 1.2 million pounds of garbage into our landfill each and every year? And then I thought about our discussion the other day with Councillor Follis brought up in regards to the difference between the garbage bags. And there was the discussion in regards to virgin plastic for, brand new see-through garbage bags. And then there was a discussion around, recycled garbage, which is essentially a recycled layer, a virgin layer, and then a recycled layer. And so I thought, okay, well, we're always talking about recycling more. So are we really creating another problem by doing this? Because we're going to be putting more virgin plastic in the landfill, essentially. So I thought, well, I wonder with that 10% reduction, since we're going to be sending 1.2 million pounds less of garbage to our landfill, well, approximately how many actual bags of garbage would that be? And I know I'm not throwing a lot of numbers out for you, but I appreciate you taking the time to listen. So I looked at the numbers of bags that we're actually going to save by doing this, regardless if they're recycled bags or they're virgin plastic bags. Because what happens, just to give you an idea, once those bags of garbage, regardless of what type of bag they're in, go to the waste diversion site, they stay in those bags. They get moved around, but those bags never get taken out. So they are there forever until we cap at the landfill. And so if you take that, and if you look up online and you Google what is the approximate weight of a garbage bag with garbage, you get to around 22 pounds or so. So I took that down to 20 pounds just to give you a bit of simpler numbers to follow. So if you take that 1.2 million pounds of garbage each year and you divide that by 20 pounds, which is the approximate weight of one of those bags, you get left with 60,000 bags. So essentially, by reducing our waste by 10%, you're going to be sending 60,000 bags less of garbage to the waste diversion site. But not only that, not only are you sending less garbage, but you're actually going to be sending 60,000 less plastic bags to our landfill, which will be there forever. So I think that's pretty good when you think about it. And in regards to the privacy and such, I know that is a concern for a lot of folks, but would you rather, potentially, and I'll get into this privacy in a second, would you rather send an extra $1.2 million or 1.2 million pounds of garbage to our landfill and another 60,000 plastic bags to our landfill, which are going to be there forever? Or would you rather spend a little bit more effort and make sure you recycle more and compost more, and maybe look at other examples of how you can keep some of that privacy. I'm not sure what folks are throwing out that they are really worried about people seeing, but luckily there are privacy bags for those sort of things. I also don't think people should be embarrassed if they're out buying condoms or birth control or feminine hygiene products, or Depends. Those aren't things that should be stigmatized out in the community. But unfortunately, sometimes they are a little bit. And I think that as a community, we can get over that. And also, you have those privacy bags. But not only that, as lots of people currently do, they put out a big garbage can. So just as an example, so I have a glass here. So they take their garbage bag and they actually put it into the garbage can. So nobody can see what's in there until the garbage person comes and takes the lid off and then pulls the bag out. So even if it is clear, like this is, nobody is going to see what's inside that bag because it's going to be in a garbage can. So that's just an example of something really basic and simple folks can do if they are worried about that privacy portion. So I just wanted to leave those thoughts with you. I think that they're fairly logical. And if you think about, the positives, I really believe that it outweighs the, potential negatives in this situation. And if folks are not on the same page as this, I'd be really curious as to why you want to send an extra 1.2 million pounds of garbage into our waste diversion center. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ainsworth. And nice to see that Mr. Preston has a disciple. And I do appreciate that passionate information. It was great. Thank you. Right now I have Councillor Spola, then Councillor Klustra, then Councillor Fallis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a lot of respect for Mr. Preston. He's very knowledgeable. He's probably one of the best experts in Ontario, or if not the whole country, on recycling and disposal. Under the circumstances of COVID-19 that we're in, my goal since I first got on council in 1977 was to get rid of the landfill site altogether. And we haven't been successful at that, even though now there's some new technologies throughout the world on incineration that the product of the air coming out of these stacks is cleaner than what we're putting out on a daily basis in the air, in the atmosphere, or in the air. But I will support Councillor Pat Heen's second her motion to delay this. I'm a strong supporter of recycling, strong supporter of getting rid of the plastic bags altogether to begin with. But I think it's time that, because of the COVID-19 and because of some of the way that the responses I got, or the people that called and sent me emails that I got, is that they're concerned. And that. So I think we should listen to our constituents. And I don't disagree that if we can do it next year, because it's an election year, we got to stand up and be counted next year if that's what we want to do. So, like I said, I would rather see this council working on a way that we can get rid of the landfill site on the lake altogether. I mean, we're concerned about what we just heard in the previous meeting about our water, drinking water in the lakes and everything else. And I can almost guarantee, after listening to the Simcoe County webinar that we had on the environment, and then the crystal plastic that goes into our landfill site and into our water, that it's not acceptable, and it is creating, excuse me, it is creating a hazard to our drinking water eventually. So I will support it for the delay, and I'll second Councillor Heen's motion for the delay at this time. But I'm a strong supporter of recycling and everything else. So, but I think because of COVID-19 is not the right time to do this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spola. I now have Councillor Klustra.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I'm with Councillor Ainsworth on this, and I'm going to support this moving forward. I know residents might be embarrassed about putting out incontinent products and stuff like that, but we do have an option putting the clear bags into a rigid plastic container. Discretion is in the eyes of the beholder, and people can certainly do that moving forward. Our whole goal here is to reduce what goes to the landfill right now, and thank you for the math lesson, Councillor Ainsworth, but I think you're absolutely correct with this is a diversion process. It's going to take some time for people to get used to. But driving around Ward 2 today, a lot of residents are already doing this practice with a lot of the blue bags and setting them out in the curb for the recycling and for some of their waste. I think it is something to work up to, but I think people will adapt with time. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Klooster. Councillor Follis.
Thanks. Through the chair, I was going to say to Mason's comments there, we were talking about bringing in an academic expert last week, and little did we know there was one in our midst, I guess. No, I really appreciated the extra energy you put into that, for sure, Mason. It kind of brings a bit of light to the situation, for sure. There were a couple of things I just wanted to comment because I had proposed the delay last week. I was curious, just to Councillor Heen, first of all, would the WEMAC committee, could it be sent back down to the WEMAC committee again so that we could review it? That was question one. And the second was, do we kind of have an end date on this when it would come back to council? I would be supportive of something if we know when it's coming back and it's relatively fair to the people that have kind of put work into there's been a lot of staff and committee time put into it. So I think it'd be fair to kind of put an end date to it. But I'm open to kind of seeing what you're proposing. The one thing I wanted to add was we were talking about last week hearing from some different cities. I was fortunate enough to get a hold of Guelph and their waste management team there, and it was very helpful just in terms of understanding kind of what they've done there, and they've had it in place a long time, and they say that it really does. People have been able to adjust to it. There's always particular situations that you can kind of work out with the constituents or the people individually, but for the most part it's functioned well, and it has they didn't really know what the diversion rates were because it was implemented so long ago, but they did say that there was some improvement and some safety improvements as well. So just I wanted to add that comment in because I didn't really have a chance to mention that last week, but yeah, I'd be interested to hear what Councillor Heen's kind of intentions are, and yeah, just interested to hearing more. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Follis. Councillor Heen, do you have a time when, if this is deferred, that you would like to see it come back to council? It sounds like as though it's for you, it's post-COVID based on your comments, but I'll leave that for you to fill in.
Right, and I'm guessing that perhaps that most people would be vaccinated by the end of the summer, so that would probably be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Iman, and from the chair, if I'm allowed to speak, I have a couple of comments before we wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I'm in favor of moving forward with this at this time. I commend Councillor Ainsworth in having given me the evidence that supports what I have always felt, and that is, in effect, when 35 years ago I was sitting in your chair, Mayor Clark, we had about a 50-year life on our waste disposal site. I believe by the last numbers we saw, we have about a 45-year life on our waste disposal site. It's the same site. And the only reason we still have that kind of time is that we have been highly successful as a community in diverting waste from the waste site. This is another tactic that will do that. And unless my colleagues have tactics that are equally capable of doing that, when the professionals recommend we do that, then I think it's appropriate that we follow their advice. As I recall, we're not implementing this for a period of time. I think it's almost a year, if I'm not mistaken, which gives the waste disposal, solid waste advisory committee lots of time to consider this matter and the issues that have been raised by the various citizens about their concerns with the practice, deal with that at their committee level, deal with the professionals, and introduce
modifications to the program so that when we do implement it, we are in fact considering all of the issues that are there. But to delay is just putting off something that is essential for the long term of this city and will save our taxpayers a huge amount of money going forward if it is in fact contributing to diverting waste.
Thank you, Councillor Iman. Is that okay if I speak from the chair? Or I can get jaded. Thank you. Couple of comments. Certainly, Councillor Heen, I understand your comment. We've been into the pandemic for about a year, almost a year now, and as being part of the EMC and a couple other emergency management committees, I've had well over 300 meetings. That in itself can make one probably a little grumpy. So I do get that, but I also believe that I'm not sure what the direct relationship is, other than it's another measure, even though it's un-COVID related. But I don't think we can put off all un-COVID related matters until we come out of the pandemic. Councillor Ainsworth was right. You put a plastic bag or any garbage in a landfill site, and in a modern day landfill site, where for biodegradation you need air, light, and water. The landfill sites today are pretty airtight and light tight, and often moisture tight. So that stuff is there for decades and decades and decades and decades and decades and beyond that, without breaking down properly. And that's only if it's the right kind of product to break down. I know one member of council talked about wanting to close the waste diversion site, but I would suggest that gets a heck of a lot harder to do if you've not reduced the demand on that landfill site. So I would suggest that diversionary tactics such as this that reduce the amount of landfill going into the site will help bring about that desire for Councillor Sepulveda even faster. I heard one member mention we should send it back to WEMAC, but I think we heard fairly clearly last week, notwithstanding Councillor Iman's suggestion that WEMAC could still take some of these concerns from the public and bring some modifications to the program before it's fully implemented. But we did hear that WEMAC is not likely to have any further input or additional input at this particular time. So my last point, which was articulated also by Councillor Eamon, that my understanding is this wouldn't come into effect until about a full year from now. And so I think you're right, Councillor Eamon, even if people aren't necessarily excited about it, they won't have to do really anything about it until about a year from now. And like you, I sure as heck hope that the majority of the COVID issues are well behind us by then. So I think the timing fits. I think it makes sense for our landfill site. I think it makes sense for our waste diversion. And I will, if necessary, I will support this. Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Councillor Follis, then Councillor Lauer.
Thanks. Through the chair, just some clarity there, because I'm trying to understand Councillor Heen's amendment. So first of all, would we have the capacity, like could it be sent back to the WEMAC committee, or with this, is it just a delay? And then second of all, do we know if we do this delay, will we still be able to hold to the timeline that's currently in place? So if we do approve it in August, I mean, it's not as ideal, but like, are we still able to lay it out for 2022? I don't know. I don't see Greg on the line, but I wondered if maybe, I don't know, Gail could speak to that. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Preston is not on with us today because I was at council committee. Pat, the Councillor Heen is suggesting maybe August. I'm going to suggest that August is probably premature if we think that that will be post-COVID. I hope that I'm wrong. I desperately hope I'm wrong. But so if the suggestion is bring it back in August because COVID will be out of the way, I think that would be premature. That's just my educated guess. So Jay, your other part of your question is, if we bring it back in August or September or October, whatever that time frame is, can we still get it implemented within this time frame? I don't know if we have the expertise around the table today to answer that question. Certainly, if it's implemented next year and the decisions made today, that's giving ample notice to not only the citizens, but the suppliers of those particular clear bags that would be able to restock their shelves. But I see Madam CAO is online, and so please weigh in, Gail.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a whole lot to add. It's just my understanding that the year time frame would be ideal, just in terms of being able to ensure that the public was aware, as you've indicated, suppliers, that kind of thing. The year time frame was identified as being ideal just to implement. We'd certainly have to circle back with staff if in fact we were going to shorten that period to determine whether perhaps it's then August of 2022 as opposed to, again, to allow that full year. So.
Thank you for that, Madam CAO. Jay, specifically on that particular question, if it is, then you jump back in, and if not, I'll go to Tim, then back to you.
I was just going to say, no, I appreciate that. I'm just trying to determine, would this be sent back to WEMAC as well? Because I want to ensure that, we have the potential to work on this. It's not just delay for the sake of delay, that we're actually, we have the ability to kind of make some changes and hear from some people in the field and those that have some background on this.
Having staff say here that it has been to WEMAC and they've had full input on it. And I think we heard last week that they are not likely to have any additional input at this time. That may change in 6 months or 8 months or something. And also, Councillor Follis, you alluded to Councillor Heen having an amendment. It's not an amendment. It'll be a motion to defer. And that's where that is at the moment. So if you're looking for an amendment, that'll be a different consideration. What I'm going to do is I'm going to entertain full discussion on the original motion. And when I'm satisfied that we've had that, I will then go to Councillor Heen and see if she's got a seconder. I think she did have a seconder to potentially defer this, and Councillor Cipolla. And then I'll call that question. If it's successful, then it's deferred. If it's not successful, and then we'll go back and call the main motion. But I believe I have Councillor Follis, and I think I saw Councillor Ainsworth with an indication to speak as well. Go ahead, Tim.
Sorry, Mayor Clark, do you have me on your list?
Sorry, the floor is now yours, and then I got to go to Mason.
Oh, okay. So I must have been flailing around. I didn't request to speak. I'm sorry.
Were you playing hockey? Oh, you flail around not just on the ice.
No,
sorry, Tim, I did have you in queue. I thought I saw your sign up. Sorry for that. And sorry for the cheap shot. You owe me one. Councillor Ainsworth.
Yes, through you, Mayor Clark, just to touch on a couple of comments that were mentioned by some of my colleagues so far. In regards to COVID being, pretty much over by the end of the summer, I hope that's the case. But from everything I've heard from both the federal and provincial government, I don't think that that's the reality, unfortunately. So to delay that, based on COVID, I think is unfortunate. Councillor Eamon hit the nail on the head, and extending the life of the waste diversion site is essentially what this does. Just to give you folks an idea, to close the landfill, which is essentially cells 1 to 12, is $15 million. So quite a considerable cost to close the landfill down the road in the future, because eventually when it's full, we have to cap it and close it, because that's the process. So anything we can do to extend that time period, as Councillor Eamon mentioned in the past, well, it was, I think he said something like 30 years or so at that time, and now we're at about 25 or something, and that was, I think, 30 years ago that they said it was going to be 30 years. So it's extended quite a considerable amount, which has kept us away from spending that $15 million essentially. So the further we can stay away from that, the better at the end of the day. That lets us prepare a lot more. If anyone remembers back to budget time during our reserves and our discussions, we put a certain amount of money together each year for the eventuality that one day we will have to cap and close the waste diversion site. And it's, as you know, it's $15 million to close that site, so it's quite a lot of money. So the more time we can extend in regards to the lifetime of that, is more time we can get that money together in a more manageable way, as opposed to just hitting the taxpayers with, hey, you know, all of a sudden $15 million is going to be there to close the waste diversion site. And I will save my comments in regards to, well, I might as well mention now just about delaying this potentially. But if we do delay this, what you're saying is that we want to put an extra 60,000 plastic bags in our landfill and another 1.2 million pounds of garbage. If you look at, you know, let's say we delay this year and then we decide, oh, well, you know, we're not going to do it in 2022 because of the election or what have you, then you're delaying it for 2 years. So that's an extra, you know, 2.4 million pounds of garbage that are now in our landfill and another 120,000 plastic bags that are, you know, probably going to have a life of, you know, hundreds of years, if not longer. We know that plastic doesn't break down very easily. So those are just some things to think about. And then in regards to Councillor Fals's comments about the Waste Management Advisory Committee, which I'm pretty sure he sits on now as the council rep. So I used to sit on that committee prior to him, which was back in, would be 2016 to 2018. So that was 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, we were having the discussion in regards to moving to clear garbage bags. And even prior to that, when Councillor Lauer was on the committee, they were having that discussion. Luckily, in the last term of council, we made some really monumental changes in regards to diverting more waste. One of the big things we did, we essentially had a big list of, hey, here's a whole bunch of things you can do. So we moved to bi-weekly waste collection, which has been phenomenal. It's really extended the life of the waste diversion site. You know, it sent a lot less garbage to the landfill, which has been great. At that same meeting, we also discussed having clear garbage bags, but we decided that we only wanted to make so many of those changes at one time. So we went with the bi-weekly waste diversion. You know, as you can see with the timeline, well, this has been 6+ years that it's being discussed. It's time to take action. I know it can be difficult for some in regards to, you know, potentially upsetting friends and family or whoever else in the community. But I'm sure if you take the time and you explain the logic behind it and the money and how much waste that this is going to divert in the future, I don't think they're going to be upset with you. They're probably going to thank you, and, you know, their children are going to thank you for sure. And also, Mayor Clark, when we get to the vote, I would like to ask for a recorded vote, please. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you, Councillor Ainsworth. I don't see any other hands in the air. I'm quite satisfied that we've had a good discussion and debate on the original motion. We do have a suggestion to defer. I think a motion moved by Councillor Heed, seconded by Councillor Cipolla. So unless there's, I will ask if there's any further discussion on the motion to defer before I call it. So, yeah, sorry, Councillor Heed, I need a date when you're thinking of deferring this to. If you're thinking post-COVID, I think you might want to extend probably well past August. That's just my personal suggestion.
I was thinking August. You said it at the committee table for those discussions. What would be your suggestion, Mayor Clark?
I can't fully answer that. I can give you a little more context. If you're really hoping for this decision not to be made until COVID is out of the way, that's probably towards the end of this year, beginning of next year, before we get back to some sense of normalcy. That's my guess. If you're looking for it to happen when we have herd immunity as far as vaccinations go in the country, then I suggest maybe sometime end of September. That's, and again, those are hopefully educated guesses, but.
Okay, so let's go for the end of September.
Okay, so you'll find a meeting time in November or September. September 20th. Okay, so I have a motion to defer this issue until September 20th of this year, moved by Councillor Heen and seconded by Councillor Cipolla. Any further discussion? I think I saw Councillor Fallis a sign in the air. Go ahead, Jay.
Thanks. Yeah, just kind of with the date, with the fact that we're really not looking to kind of do any more digging on this, I think I'd be inclined to just have it go forward without the delay. If the delay were honestly to collect more information, I'd be supportive, but I think it just, I wouldn't support delay for delay's sake, and I think it's kind of getting into the point where it's impacting the timeline a bit. So that's my thoughts on it. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Councillor Follis. Any further discussion on the motion to defer? I will now call the motion on the question on the motion to defer. All in favor? That is defeated. And go back to the main motion. It's very short, and it doesn't. But I will read it, or I will read it. Anyway, that. Moved by Councillor Ainsworth, second by Councillor Cipolla. The original motion that clause 7 of report number 2021-2 of Council Committee now before Council be adopted. Any further discussion? Sorry, it is a recorded vote. So, hello, Laura. Okay, so Madam Deputy Clerk, if you would please spin that magic that you do when we do a recorded vote.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. A recorded vote has been requested. When I call your name, please indicate your vote by saying yes or no. I will begin with Councillor Ainsworth.
Yes.
Councillor Emond.
Yes.
Councillor Follis.
Yes.
Councillor Heen.
No.
Councillor Cipolla.
Yes.
Councillor Campbell.
Yes.
Councillor Klustra.
Yes.
Councillor Lauer.
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Clark, there are 8 yeas, 1 nay. The motion is carried.
Thank you very much for that, Madam Deputy Clerk and members of council. That was certainly a vibrant discussion. And Councillor Raines was just curious what kind of calculator that was you were given for Christmas. Ah, touche, or touche, salesman. Okay, on to the next item. Should have known you'd have a prop right there. All right, so we're on to report number 2. Okay. We have 2 reports before us that apparently are extremely timely. And for the first one with respect to the swim dock, I think we'll welcome Jonathan McMullen to the table to introduce this particular issue. John is our manager of park planning and development. Welcome to the virtual hood, John.
Thank you, and good evening. The purpose of this report is to inform Council about the status of the approved 2020 capital project to replace the existing swim dock decking and ladder at Coogitching Beach Park, and to seek additional funding to complete the project. The report is time sensitive as the work that will be completed is required to be done from the lake surface. Doing such work requires that the city approval be expedited, and therefore staff are reporting directly to Council. A capital project budget of $20,000 was approved through the 2020 budget process for the repair of the dock. Following the 2020 budget approval, staff solicited and received competitive quotes for the required work. The successful bidder will replace all existing deck boards and install 2 new swim ladders. The quoted work could not be completed prior to the 2020 swimming season due to miscellaneous complications caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. As such, repair work was scheduled to occur this winter, and the newly repaired dock is planned to be installed for the 2021 season. In January of this year, staff was contacted by the successful bidder stating that due to construction cost inflation, the necessary repair work could no longer be accomplished for the submitted price. The revised cost for the necessary dock repair is now $25,325. Staff recommend that the Couchiching Beach swim dock and ladder replacement capital project budget be increased by $6,000 and that the increase be funded from the capital contingency reserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McMullen. I will now ask staff to put the proposed or recommended motion on the screen unless there's a desire to go in a different direction. That is recommended in report DSE 2107 dated February 2nd, 2021 from the Development Services and Engineering Department, the Couchiching Beach swim dock and ladder replacement capital project budget be increased by $6,000 and that the increase be funded from the capital contingency reserve. I will open the floor for questions, comments, discussion. So yeah, as a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor. Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Mason. Any desire, anybody wish to speak? Councillor Raymond.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. With respect to this motion, and I believe these comments would also be pertinent to the next motion, during the Economic Recovery Task Force meeting this morning, we heard directly from a representative of Home Hardware with respect to the impact of COVID on that business. And the conclusion is very much that materials, particularly wood products, have seen the price escalate significantly over the last year. So as John has reported in this report and in the next one, much of the increased cost is a function of material increase. What I found interesting, it was confirmed very much by someone in the supply chain that is in fact an issue that we are confronted with, and the indication is that we will continue to see volatility in that area over the next little while. So I'd strongly support us moving forward with this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Raymond. Anyone else wish to weigh in on this? I will now call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McMullen. Thank you, David. And as alluded to by Councillor Raymond, we have a somewhat related issue with respect to the Aqua Theater. And Mr. McMullen didn't leave the hood for good reason. You're going to introduce this one as well. You're on mute there, John. You have to start over again, please.
One more time from the top. The purpose of this report is to inform Council about the status of the approved repair project to the Rotary Aqua Theater and to seek Council's approval for additional funding that will allow for the completion of the proposed repairs. This report is presented to Council now as it is time sensitive. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the construction industry and material pricing. The contractor engaged to complete the required work at the Aqua Theater has indicated that their material and labor costs are fluctuating quickly, and an expedited budget approval for the increased project cost is necessary for them to schedule the proposed works and execute the contract. The structural condition of the building has been monitored and documented since 2011. A capital project was approved to repair the building and extend its usable life after the city's structural engineering analysis concluded that the building was no longer safe. The approved capital project is for the renovation and repair of the building and includes a new concrete floor, replacement of doors, interior painting and repair of damaged walls, new fixtures, repair and upgrades to the exterior of the building, mandatory replacement of corroded steel supporting beams, a new electrical service, a sloping cedar shake roof, and aesthetic upgrades to the front elevation that are in line with other park buildings. In May of 2020, the construction contract was awarded to the low bidder. Before the work could be initiated, the contractor contacted the city indicating that due to material pricing volatility, the proposed project could not be completed at the submitted bid price. The project has been on hold since. This month, the low bidder submitted pricing to the city that they are willing to hold for a period of 2 weeks. And for this reason, staff has chosen to rush this project request through directly to council to seek additional funding so that the project can proceed with certainty. Staff recommend that the Rotary Aqua Theater capital project budget be increased by $72,000 and that this increase be funded from the purchase of Parkland Reserve, and that Yorkton Contracting Limited be awarded the contract for the Rotary Aqua Theater for the sum of $570,179. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McMullen. If it's okay, I'll put the motion on the screen, look for a mover and a seconder. Unless there's a desire to go in a different direction, then I'll come to you, Councillor Spola. That as recommended in the report DSC 2108, dated February 1st, 2021, from the Development Services and Engineering Department, the Rotary Aqua Theater capital project budget be increased by $72,000, that the increase be funded from the purchase of Parkland Reserve, and that Yorkton Contracting Limited be awarded the contract for the Rotary Aqua Theater capital project construction for the sum of $570,179. Is there a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ainsworth and Councillor Heen. And Councillor Spola, did you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 questions. One, first, I want to thank Mr. McMullen for the excellent work he's done on this. But I have a question. Is Rotary contributing to this phase or the next one? Because if it's for this phase, I will declare a conflict of interest. If it's not, then I'm okay.
Through you, Mayor Clark, no, Rotary is not contributing to this. This is a approved capital project.
Thank you, and you've done an excellent job on this, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Okay. One question from the chair, if I could be allowed. Then I'll go to Heaps. I'm just trying to read it upside down. Can you speak to the confidence that we have in this contractor, probably based on previous work that they've done?
The contractor is new to working in Aurelia. They're based out of Barrie. They were vetted through our typical purchasing process, which involves contacting references. All of those reference checks were affirmed with positivity, and in general, over the past year, needing to negotiate and communicate with this group, they seem like a professional and well-prepared contractor.
Thank you for that, John. Councillor Lauer?
Thanks, Mayor Clark. 2 quick questions about timelines. I'm sorry if I missed it in the report, but when would they start? When would they be finished?
Mr. Ramon?
So the contractor, we have been trying to get the contractor to commit to a start date. They have asked us to approve the budget, which will then allow them to lock in their subcontractors at specific prices, which is why they're asking for it to be moved relatively quickly. So the first matter of business that I will be dealing with once this is approved is to lock them into a start date. Our intention is to begin, we would like to have the project begin as early as possible in once the park is dried up, so late spring, early summer, and have the work finished well before the end of construction season. But we don't have an actual start date at this time. They want this to know that the budget's been approved, because that will allow them to coordinate with subcontractors and schedule the project.
So I'm sorry, is there an estimate timeline? Like, are they going to take 3 months, 6 months? Is this a
This would be an approximate 8-week construction timeline.
8 weeks, so only 2 months. I don't know. I'm just a little wary of starting something in the middle of the summer. It'd be nice. I don't know why they wouldn't be able to get in May. That's not a very wet area in there, so I'm hoping that we can avoid that midsummer schmozzle thing. But my other quick comment on this one is I've got a couple of calls. I talked to you about this the other day, John. I don't know how this happened, but a few people have got it in their head that there's a possibility of the trees that are in behind the Aqua Theater coming down, and they don't think that's a very good idea. And I actually agree with them, because I think we would just create a ideal graffiti wall, as we did with the water treatment wall that's right by it there. But anyway, I just make note of that, and that hopefully that we will be talking to Yorkton and telling them that, you know, if there's any trees coming down, you want to check with us first.
Through you, Mayor Clark, the idea of removing some trees from behind the Aqua Theater was brought up through our waterfront study, and has been brought to staff's attention by Rotary for the idea of cleaning that area up. And they had talked about being able to show movies on the rear of the Aqua Theater for the boating public. The removal of trees is not part of this project. It was, however, noted in the waterfront study as something that could be supported in the long-term plans for the park. But at that time, that work is not scheduled, and if it were, it would require an assessment by our own arborist and discussion.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Lauer. Thank you, Mr. McMillan. I believe I had Councillor Heed in queue.
Actually, John answered my question. I had read somewhere that there was an idea of using that back wall to show movies for boaters.
Good, thank you. I have a motion on the floor moved by Councillor Ainsworth, seconded by Councillor Heed. We've had adequate discussion. Unless somebody else wishes to jump in at the last moment, I will now call the question. All in favor? That is carried, and thank you. Thank you, Jonathan McMillan. Okay, we're on to motions. The first one is with respect to 246 Mississauga Street West. And nobody's introducing this. We're just, yeah, so we'll just put the proposal on the screen if staff would be so kind. The further to the public meeting of council held on January 18th, 2021, council approves zoning bylaw amendment application number D14896 for Market West Inc., 246 Mississauga Street West, as set out in the supplementary memo dated January 27th, 2021 from Development Services and Engineering Department. Is there a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor? Thank you, Councillor Klooster. Thank you, Councillor Ainsworth. Any discussion? We certainly had good discussion at the planning session. I will now call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Also, another planning related matter with respect to 1382 Wilson Point Road. I'll ask staff to put that, there we are, thank you. That memo that's come forward from the planning meeting from council committee, but further to the report, further to the public meeting of council that is held on January 18th, 2021, council approves the official plan amendment application number D09203 with respect to 1872910 Ontario 1382 Wilson Point Road, is set out a supplementary memo dated February 2nd, 2021 from the Development Services and Engineering Department. Is there a mover and a second? Thank you, Mason. And thank you, Councillor Ted. Any further discussion? Councillor Lauer.
Thanks, Mayor Clark. I'm not going to be supporting this particular application. This is not a question of whether we permit the building or not. It's just a question of whether we allow a septic or not. And although I understand septics are state of the art when they're put in, they do deteriorate. And if you have someone who is not looking after a septic, then in consideration of council's 30 years down the road, it's a problem I don't think they need necessarily to have. There are some sensitive areas in there. I'm not sure I can call them exactly wetlands. I do know there's a humongous turtle that lives down in there for sure, and a few other things. So I think in this case, I'm not going to support this, and hopefully they'll just simply connect to the city system, which isn't that far away, and that will be that.
Thank you, Councillor Lauer. Any further questions, comments, discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Councillor Klooster, are you with us? You having some difficulties? Councillor Klooster is still connected. Oh, there it is. Okay. Good. Good. Thank you. Okay, and now we're on to notices of motion, of which we have one, which was postponed from January 18th. It has been moved by Councillor Fallis and seconded by Councillor Lauer. And I will take a moment and read it. This is with respect also to the presentation we had with our neighbors from Ramera before this council meeting. So, whereas it has come to the city of Aurelia's attention that there is a potential request for a minister's zoning order for the Rama Road Corridor project in the township of Ramera, and whereas this project could have significant impacts on the city of Aurelia's economic development planning, and whereas the development will be on the shores of Lake Couchiching, a body of water that the city of Aurelia shares with the township of Ramera, and whereas Lake Couchiching is a major source of drinking water for the city of Aurelia, and whereas local residents and pertinent agencies have not been duly consulted about this project and the impacts that it could have in the area, and whereas the use of administered zoning orders are more commonly used to bypass existing environmental regulations, limits the capacity for public input on major planning projects, and whereas the increased use of administered zoning orders as a tool to bypass existing environmental regulations has a great potential to negatively impact the province's environment and various ecosystems. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Aurelia Council formally requests that any future minister's zoning order application for the Rama Road project located in the township of Ramera and forwarded to your ministry be rejected. Pardon me. And that the City of Aurelia wants to ensure proper care and study is taken to ensure water quality, shoreline health, and flooding concerns are addressed in and around Lake Couchiching. And that the Aurelia City Council requests the provincial government of Ontario not to use minister's zoning orders as a tool to bypass environmental regulations for the expedited approval of planning projects, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the provincial minister of municipal affairs and housing, Steve Clark, for the second time today. Disclaimer: no relation, as an associate. And then the copy of this resolution be forwarded to the provincial minister of municipal affairs and housing, Steve Clark, as well as associate minister of children and women's issues, and who is also our Simcoe North MPP, Jill Dunlop, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the township of Ramera and the county of Simcoe. I will entertain questions, comments. Councillor Spillane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to reiterate that I have a conflict with this, so I won't be participating in the discussion.
Thank you. Is there any recommended legislation that recommends somebody shut off their camera or anything? Yeah. Oh, you did? Okay, good. Terrific. Councillor Ainsworth, then Councillor Ebert.
Yes, through you, Mayor Clark, I will not be supporting this motion moving forward. I feel it's really redundant at this stage in time, especially with the information we received at the prior meeting. And then secondly, I think that a big part of this whole discussion has been mostly around MZOs and certain people's opposition to them. I think that they're welcome to have those beliefs for sure, but I don't think this is the particular motion to kind of go against the province with that and to let them know your concerns. I think that would be something separate outside of this that's definitely worthy of discussion for sure, but not with this particular motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ainsworth. Councillor Emond.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Like Councillor Ainsworth, I wasn't sure whether this was an issue of an MZO or an issue of the development, to be quite candid. But unlike Councillor Ainsworth, I am going to support this motion because I was not satisfied in our earlier discussion that the MZO is not in play. The challenge we have is that municipalities are the function of the province. And the province, through a minister's zoning order or a minister's order, can in fact override all of the legislation, all of the mechanisms that are in place within a township. So or in a municipal jurisdiction. So the reassurance that this project would certainly have site planning control and things like that, because our bylaws say they would, is not necessarily accurate if in fact the minister exercises an MZO on this particular development. I have come to the conclusion that the magnitude of this development can have significant impact on our city. It can have significant negative impact on the lake and our enjoyment of the lake, and on potentially our drinking water, which we bring from the lake. The proposed development will also have a significant impact on the infrastructure within the city. And a magnitude of this nature will put pressure on our roads, our parks, our recreation facilities, our trails, our cultural facilities, may even have a positive impact on our commercial facilities. And as Councillor Heem pointed out in our earlier meeting, will have a significant impact on our healthcare and the number of physicians we have in the city, and certainly on the hospital. So I do believe that we as a city have a right to have a say in a development of this nature. I believe that Ramera, Severn, Oromadani, at least the north part of Oromadani, and the city of Aurelia, and our friends at Chippewas of Brahma make up a logical and an integrated entity. It's recognized by those being communities surrounding Lake Couchiching as a major body of water. It's recognized by our local economy as totally and completely integrated. It's recognized by our safety and security, with our policing being now covering that physical area. It's recognized by the healthcare, with the Couchiching provincial health team now making decisions about health in our community for that area. And a proposal of this scale, decisions made by one subsection, some subpart, that being a township within that region, can have significant ripple effects, both positive potentially and negative potentially, on the surrounding on that region. And for that reason, I believe that decisions of development of this magnitude, whether they are in Ramera or whether they are in Severin or Ormagani, or even to some degree within the city of Orillia, need to be decisions that take into account the opinions of all of the surrounding regions, so that they are decisions that are effective and appropriate for the regional area, not just for the narrow views of the particular jurisdiction that is putting them forward. Notwithstanding that the motion does not particularly focus on that aspect of why I would be opposed to an MZO in this area, I am confident that over time we will be able to bring that message to Minister Clark and to the provincial government. In the meantime, the MZO is a very dangerous vehicle in terms of the potential for it to override municipal decision making with respect to something of this magnitude. So I will be in support of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Iman. Councillor Heen.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I too will be in support of this motion. My major concern is that once the file for the MZO has been opened by the government, it remains open. And I've rather gathered from our earlier meeting that the townships didn't realize that they had to actually ask the ministry to rescind the file, to close that file out. And they didn't seem to be willing to take that step. So I think that we have to go on record as saying that we do not support the MZO, so that our voice is being heard. And this is the way to make sure that our voice is being heard.
Thank you, Councillor Heen. Any further questions, comments? Councillor Lauer.
Thanks, Mayor Clark. So as I understood what we heard earlier in the day, there is no application. There is no request for an MZO. There is a conversation. There is a file that has that conversation recorded somewhere, and it's being initiated by the province. The idea was initiated by the province, and certainly it sounds like Ramera started the conversation. But I also heard Ramera very clearly state that there was a more likelihood that this was going to become a planning amendment, and that it would be going through other channels completely. I'm wondering, does it, if we send this off to the ministry, are we not likely just to get an answer back saying there is no MZO on this one? Or would we be smarter to, number one, wait, or number two, recraft something? Because I think around the table there is an objection to MZOs generally, not just in this case, but in most cases. So would it be more effective? And I'm asking the question to perhaps again put this on hold and either perhaps recraft a more generic response to MZOs, or wait until such time as it's a relevant question, if in fact they ever do, if it ever does become a relevant question.
Thank you, Councillor Lauer. I'm going to interpret that as a non-rhetorical question. So were you looking for an answer on that, or that was your question was really a suggestion?
Well, I'm just asking my colleagues, I guess, if there is any appetite for, just maybe rethinking this. Again, the comments I heard this afternoon that Ramera is fully committed to the full process, and that all studies will be required. They have a secondary plan on that corridor. So I'm just not sure what we're exactly speaking to.
my mute button either likes me too much or Councillor, I was going to weigh in with a comment in reply to that, but I see Councillor Campbell with a sign up. So Councillor Campbell, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I certainly understand where Councillor Lauer is coming from on this. Again, I appreciate the representatives from Remera doing that presentation earlier. And I certainly take them at their word that they said that they're not formally requesting an MZO in this case. Having said that, I don't see any harm in us passing this motion and just making sure that the province is aware that we oppose an MZO being used for any development in that area. I don't see the harm in doing that, and I will certainly be supporting this motion for that reason.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Lauer, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Clark. And just to that point, I think we also clearly heard this afternoon from Remera that they may have a bit of a communications problem, and that they expressed a desire to straighten it out. As a matter of fact, they were talking about a press release, and they were ruing the fact that this they felt had gotten a bit out of hand because of what they considered misinformation. So I think by doing this today, and again without delaying it, we may be feeding into that problem they're having, and I think it would be polite of our municipality to consider their municipality and give them a chance to bring out their press release and clear the air, and perhaps see where they stand, see where it all stands. So that would be the intention. That would be the harm I would be trying to avoid.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Heen and then Councillor Emar.
So Tim, am I hearing you say that you would rather that we delay this motion until our next council meeting?
Yeah, well, I don't know about the next council meeting, but I think we could put it off until we have a little bit more information, and we allow Remera to deal with the issue, and then we can respond to their response. I think it just puts us in a better position. So I'm not sure. I don't think it's in the next meeting. I think it would be at least a month or so.
Thank you very much, Councillor Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Notwithstanding the conversation we had with our guests from Remera, the document that is attached to this motion, which predates the letter from the mayor of Remera to this council, states specifically, the municipality is requesting that the minister enact a minister's zoning order for the 3 proposed developments in order to commence the growth and development within the Rama Road corridor. That's a pretty clear statement of a document that I understand was forwarded to the minister's office. In the context that Councillor Heen has pointed out, if a request has gone forward, the minister's office will appraise that, adjudicate it within the context of whatever criteria they're using. And if they were to issue a minister's order, then the 3 major developments that are included in this project would be permitted to proceed. Notwithstanding, and we have no idea what that order might be in terms of what qualifications would be in it or not, but typically those orders are to circumvent the normal planning process to enable expedited development. So I am of the opinion that we need to be very strong in our communication with the minister, that not only are we uncomfortable and generally opposed to ministers' planning orders, but in this particular case, we believe this particular development needs a significant review in the context of the current planning process to ensure that it does not interfere with the quality of our water and the life and the other related issues that I spoke of earlier.
Thank you, Councillor Iman. Councillor Heen, as we begin to wrap this up.
So, Ted, do you feel that the motion as it stands is strong enough then?
Sorry, Councillor Campbell, I did circumvent you. I will come back to you. I apologize for that. Councillor Heen, I guess Councillor Heen is asking you if the wording in this motion is strong.
If I may, Mayor Clark, I would like the motion to be more specific to the magnitude of this particular development. I'm of the opinion that there are circumstances where MZOs are in fact appropriate and historically have been used in this province for those reasons. So I'm not intellectually opposed to an MZO, but what we're seeing is a trend across the province to use MZOs to expedite economic development at the expense of environmental issues are the ones that are getting the most amount of publicity. But in my case, I believe, in this particular case, I believe that magnitude of development on the fringe of Aurelia will have significant impact on our community, not only potentially on our enjoyment of the lake and the use of our water supply, but on all facets of life within Aurelia and the potential costs to this municipality of having to improve infrastructure in order to accommodate 4,000 additional residents on our verge. If that's something that we as a region believe is appropriate, then we need mechanisms in place to ensure that all jurisdictions are contributing to the need, are contributing in a manner that is equitable and appropriate. And as we saw today in the mayor of Ramara's point, is that there is no intention to contribute to the doctor recruitment program, notwithstanding that his residents get a significant advantage of that program because the hospital happens to be located in the city of Aurelia and they're getting an effective free ride. Well, you could extrapolate the impact of this development in a number of different ways that would see the same thing happening, and it's a concern to me. And the concern is the development, but if the development is going forward under the Planning Act, I believe we have the opportunity to intervene in a variety of ways. If it is proceeding under an MZO, I don't believe we have that opportunity.
Thank you for that. And Councillor Campbell, I apologize. I wrote your name down and put a line through it before I even went to, so I'm going to go to you right now.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Clark. So what we heard earlier from the officials from Armera was that they approached the province about the concept. They refer to this development as a concept, not as a development, but as a concept for a development. And during that conversation, it was the province that actually suggested using an MZO as a mechanism to expedite the process. It wasn't that Ramera approached the province looking specifically for an MZO. So that's fine, but to me, the bottom line is the conversation has begun about an MZO, and we need to be part of that conversation, and we need to be part of that conversation early. And now is the time for us to be part of that conversation, and I think that's what this motion would achieve. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Lauer to kind of reiterate his suggestion in a minute. I will say I had issues with the way this whole process has come together. Having said that, we have a motion in front of us that is kind of on two fronts. One, talking about the opposition to the concept proposed. Number two, the opposition to the use of MZOs to circumvent, I believe, I don't know exactly what the wording is, environmental processes. And we certainly heard from Romero that they had no intention whatsoever of circumventing those processes. So with those couple of that little quandary sort of explained there, Councillor Lauer, can you just explain what your suggestion is again? Because it might be something at least I'm inclined to believe or support.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Clark. Well, first of all, right off the start, I do have a philosophical problem with MZOs. I'm not in favor of them. There may be extenuating emergency situations where somebody could make argument for them, but generally, anything that circumvents people's rights to protect their property and certainly a municipality's right to protect its assets. So I have no use for an MZO on any level. But what my concern here is that we did have a neighbor township come and speak to us. The point was brought up that it did clearly say that they had applied for an MZO. They quite clearly said that was a miscommunication. It wasn't correct. They have not applied formally for an MZO. Councillor Eamon's talking about he's not happy with the wording of it. It's not strong enough, or it's not targeted enough, or whatever. What I'm saying is, instead of just quickly rushing out and just stamping an approval on something that we're not all completely satisfied with, I'm suggesting that we put it off again for today. Maybe councillors that wish to strengthen it can weigh in with some wording that might address some of their concerns. It would give Romero a chance to, come out with, as they have stated they're intending to do, with some sort of clarification statement. So once that clarification is made, then I think that's a more proper time for us to actually respond. I'm more than willing to today, if we want to send off a letter to the provincial government that we have no use for MZOs, I'll sign that in a minute. But I'm reluctant to interfere with Romero's good intentions. So that's where my delay is coming from.
Thank you. And if I could make a comment, I too would not want to see an MZO used to circumvent necessary environmental due diligence. I do believe there are probably times where an MZO is quite appropriate, but it really would be situation specific. But like Councillor Lauer, I believe that we heard our neighbors. We asked them to come here. They've had a lot of input, as we have as members of council from the public. I think they've been quite surprised by that. They did say that that there was a misrepresentation, that they had requested an MZO, despite what the letter said, which it did clearly state that. But we also, I'm sure, I would hope, gave our neighbors some food for thought, and I would like to see their reaction to that. And so I would, if you're suggesting deferring it for a small number of weeks, I would support that. And then we can talk about whether we want to talk about that specific development or about MZOs in particular, or environmental MZOs. I see Tim's finger, and then Ted, go right ahead. Tim.
Just to say, Mayor Clark, I will formally put that move to postpone on the table.
Thank you. So once we've had a full discussion on the original motion, we'll, if you've got a seconder, if I need to be the seconder, I will. I saw somebody else kind of nodding there. Councillor Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. If we are contemplating something like a 4-week delay here, and during which we can in fact craft a motion that more aligns, at least from my perspective, with my concern about the magnitude and scale of the development and its impact not only on the environment but on the region and that sort of thing. I would be more than pleased to participate in helping to craft that response. I'm not in favor at the moment of just a carte blanche. I'm opposed to MZOs. I can contemplate and envision that we could be at a circumstance at some point where we are needing a minister's help to accomplish something that is important for our city. And if that's the tool that is most appropriate at that time, assuming that it doesn't compromise the kinds of environmental and economic issues we've been chatting about, then that may be an appropriate use. But I do believe that this development, if we were to see the what is in the document that we have been provided, which in my mind, we heard good words from our friends in Romero, but I think what they were requesting when they initially sent this document along was for the minister to use an MZO to overcome an obstacle they have to these three developments, and have since realized that that's creating a bit of a problem. So they're trying to find a way to work it through. I'm quite comfortable to help work it through. And if we can do that in the next month, I'm happy to do that. Support Councilor Lauer.
Thank you for that. Just before I go to Madam CAO, Tim and Councilor Lauer and Councilor Eamon, you've more or less caught where my mind is at in this, and so I would be supportive of deferral, not for the sake of a deferral, but a deferral to figure out exactly what the wording might be and direction. Madam CAO.
Mr. Mayor, maybe just to help with respect to this issue, as this was a report that was drafted by a member of council, certainly staff, although there were some minimal discussions with Mr. Sugden on the issue, staff have not weighed in on this issue at all. And if it is the pleasure of council, we would be more than happy to work with yourself, Mr. Mayor, and craft a motion in consultation with our development services folks that might be more in keeping with where council may ultimately want to go with respect to this issue. And perhaps we could draft a couple that could be used as the next round for consideration. I would ask Mr. Mayor that time be allocated, though, just if this matter is to be postponed, then a month would be a good time frame.
Thank you. I think that's not taking advantage, but using our staff to weigh in on that would probably be very appropriate. And I'm sure we would get members of council that would weigh in on that as well. Councillor Fallis, I believe I saw your sign up.
Thanks. Just a quick comment here. Yeah, I mean, if Ted wants to put forward an amendment right now, if he had a certain position on something, happy to support it. And I do understand kind of the intent of delaying it to work on it. And if you know, fully support if Ted or anyone else in the council wanted to add to it. You know, I understand the desire there. I don't think I can support a delay. The two reasons being that I think the actual, from my understanding, the process of the MZO is very opaque, and so we don't know when kind of an approval would happen. And so, you know, we could get to a situation where if this gets delayed to a certain extent, you know, it might get approved and then, you know, the letter is meaningless kind of thing. So that's one, that's number one reason. The second reason is I am concerned that, you know, if there's too much kind of, you know, that the intent could be lost if we are changing it to such the nth degree. This is really focused on the project itself and the issues with we were talking there about my major concerns are around process and around impact to Aurelians, and so that's why I'm putting this forward. I'll certainly respect and happy to work with anyone if they're wanting to add to it if the delay does go through, but I can't support a delay at this time. Thanks.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor Fallis. I've lost Councillor Ainsworth. Is he not connected? Oh, there he is. Thank you. Okay, so I think I believe we've had adequate discussion on the original motion, and which means if there is a motion to defer, which I think Councillor Lauer has certainly suggested, and I think even Councillor Eamon mentioned he'd be involved in some wording that could result from a deferral. And so, is there Councillor Lauer? Are you moving to defer? Yes. Councillor Eamon, you're okay to second that? Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to defer? And I'll probably come back. Well, it's less than a month. Okay. All right, so it'll be March 29th. Okay. Anyway, so the motion to defer to March 29th and retwig the wording potentially. Well, that would be the work that would take place. Any further discussion on the motion to defer? I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Consent agenda. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lauer, process. Go ahead.
So, sorry, Mayor Clark, should have asked this before we voted, but have we given staff the okay to weigh in on this one?
Certainly, my sense is that would be the case at MCO. Confirm or deny.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will confirm. And so I will work with Mr. Sugden and those members of council who want to provide some input as to what they'd like to see in the motion. So yes, staff will work on that motion.
Change of direction?
No, Mayor Clark, not at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Eamon. I used to think that you were just being overly friendly. Now I realize you're pointing out a technical glitch that I seem to be frequently involved in. Anyway, so we're unaware of any items being pulled from the consent agenda. So therefore, I would ask staff to put on the screen a motion that captures the 3 consent agenda items. And there it is right there. The council adopt the recommendations as set out on the consent agenda for the regular meeting of council held on February 8th, 2021. And is there a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ainsworth. Thank you, Councillor Heen. Any discussion on any of one of those 3 consent agenda items? I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you. How many signs do you have, Councillor Lauer? Thank you. And there's the book, the Bible that Madam CEO gave me. I got enough of the key words there. So we are indeed into bylaws, Madam Deputy Clerk. Okay. They will appear on the screen, even though I'm reading it on the paper. Is that correct? Thank you. I will read the bylaws, and then I guess we're continuing in the form that we've established, ask for a mover and a shaker at that point. That the following bylaws be enacted: 2021-11, Amendment number 91 to bylaw number 2014-44, the zoning bylaw for the city of Aurelia, 246 Mississauga Street West. 2021-12, a bylaw to adopt amendment number 13 to the official plan for the city of Aurelia, 1872910 Ontario Inc., 1382 Wilson Point Road. 2021-13, a bylaw to amend Chapter 170 of the City of Aurelia Municipal Code, Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Officer Jessica Russi. 2021-14, a bylaw to amend Chapter 118 of the City of Aurelia Municipal Code, Active Transportation Committee. 2021-15, a bylaw to authorize the execution of a letter of agreement between Her Majesty the Queen and the right of the province of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Transportation and the Corporation of the City of Aurelia, funding under the dedicated gas tax funds public transportation program. 2021-16, a bylaw to authorize the execution of the payment, the transfer payment, that is, agreement for the municipal enhanced transfer payment agreement for the municipal transit enhanced cleaning between Her Majesty the Queen and the right of the province of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Transportation for the province of Ontario and the Corporation of the City of Aurelia. 2021-17, a bylaw to amend Chapter 210 of the City of Aurelia Municipal Code, Tax Collector. And bylaw number 2021-18, a bylaw to amend Chapter 877 of the City of Aurelia Municipal Code, Solid Waste Management. And who says that we are not lawmakers? Is there a mover and a seconder to put this on the floor? Thank you, Councillor Klooster. Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Any discussion? I will call the question. All in favor? That is passed. Thank you. And we should have one more of those, do we not? Thank you. That'll appear magically on the screen. I'll tell you, 6 o'clock, is that a real light out your window, Councillor Lau, or is that a fake backdrop? Wow, it's getting lighter later. I'm a little more motivated than I was a month ago. Okay, the bylaw number 2021-19, a bylaw to confirm proceedings of council at its meeting held on this very day, February 8th, 2021, be enacted. A mover and a shaker. Thank you, Councillor Cipolla. Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Any discussion on the bylaw to confirm? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Announcements. Are there any announcements? Thank you. Thank you. Madam Deputy Clerk, are we aware? Whoops, sorry, Councillor Cipolla, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to just pass on my thanks to staff and to councillors that reached out to our family on the loss of my best friend and my Diane's and my children's best friend, Rudy. So thank you so much. As you can see, there's some flowers back here that were sent from some of our people. And just thank you. It's when somebody loses a furry friend, it's not just mine, but I've heard a lot of people that it is something that the family has a hard time with. So, but I thank you very much for reaching out to me.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor. Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have anybody lined up for open public forum? No? Okay, thank you. In that case, those 9, the magnificent 8 in front of me, is still an old Western title. Is there somebody who's willing to make a motion to adjourn this meeting? Moved by Councillor Eamon. and second by Councillor Klooster. Mason, I think that's the first time you've never been a mover or a seconder on a motion to adjourn. Anyway, I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thanks very much, gang. And we'll talk soon in one way, shape, or form.
Thanks, Steve.
Good night, all.
Good night.